Hello, welcome to today's edition of Daf Yomi. Mesechet Traktate Bekhorot Daf 18 Omid A. So let's dive straight in. The Gemara objects no Rabbi Eliezer holds in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yosef Galili, who says it is possible for two masters at the hand of heaven to coincide precisely, and all the more so matters that are in human hands. Consequently, one can cite Rabbi Eliezer's opinion in order to determine the opinion of the rabbis. The Gemara suggests, let us say that this is subject to a dispute between the Tanaim, as it is taught in a Braita, if the corpse of a slain person was found precisely between two towns. What does that mean? The halacha is in accordance with the opinion of the rabbis. It is impossible to measure precisely even matters that are in human hands. According, if the corpse of a slain person is found between two towns, they bring a single heifer jointly and stipulate it is brought for the town that it is actually near. And that's Rabbah Seif in Ezekiel, Hilchot Utseach, Ushmirat Hanefes 9:8. They would not break the heifer's neck at all. Rabbi Eliezer says the two towns bring two heifers between them. What is it not to say that they disagree with regard to this matter, in that the first town holds that it is impossible for two matters to coincide precisely. Let's explain that according to the first town, each town can claim that it is not the nearest, and therefore neither brings a heifer. Others write that the mitzvah applies only to the town that is known with certainty to be the nearest. If it is possible that another town is nearer, the mitzvah does not apply, and that's from the Rebbeinu Gershom or Hagola. Still, others suggest that this is as it is impossible for two matters to coincide precisely, and yet the measurement indicates that the two towns are equidistant from the corpse. Evidently, the measurement was not performed properly, since the requirement, and they shall measure, Deuteronomy 21:2, was not fulfilled, but heifer cannot be brought, and that's in the Chedush Hariz. Now, there is a hold that it is possible for two matters to coincide precisely. The Gemara rejects this suggestion. And can you understand that to be the dispute? If the Tana holds that it is impossible for two matters to coincide precisely, why does he claim that they would not break the heifer's neck? Let them bring one heifer in partnership and stipulate it is brought for the town that is actually nearest. Rather, with regard to these Tanaim, everyone agrees that it is precisely for two matters to coincide precisely. So it is possible for two matters to coincide precisely. And here they disagree over whether the singular form Karova in the phrase, the town which is nearest Karova, indicates that it is only the nearest town brings a heifer, and not the many nearest Karovot towns. As the first town holds that it is derived from the term Karova, that only the nearest town brings a heifer, and not multiple Karovot. And Rabbi Eliezer holds that although the verse states Karova, nevertheless this includes even multiple towns that are Karovot. The Gemara asks, what conclusion was reached about the rabbi's opinion with regard to whether matters in human hands coincide precisely? Rav Chia bar Avin says that Rav Avram says, the sages taught in a Braita, if the same person is found precisely between two towns, Rabbi Eliezer says that the two towns brings two heifers between them, and the rabbis say they bring one heifer in partnership and stipulate it is brought for the town that is nearest. What did the rabbis hold in this regard? The rabbis hold that it is possible for two matters that in the human hands coincide precisely, and the singular Karova includes even multiple towns, Karovot, then they should bring two heifers, and if they hold that the Karova indicates but not Karovot, then they should bring even one heifer. Rather, must one not conclude from it that the rabbis hold that it is impossible for two matters to coincide precisely, and this is true even with regard to matters that are in human hands? According to the Rambam, the halacha follows the opinion of the rabbi. See the Megadim on the Shulchan Aruch Yodei 23:11. Others rule in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yosef Galili that it is possible to precisely measure matters that are in human hands, as indicated in Eruvin 16b, Tosfot and Rosh. Both opinions cited in the Shulchan Aruch, Rambam Seif in Ezekiel, Hilchot V'Seich Mishmirat Hanefes 9:8, Orach Chaim 648:11, and C 631:8. And you conclude from it that this is so. The mission teaches that in the case of an ewe that gave birth for the first time to two male offspring, whose heads emerged as one, Rabbi Talmud says the priest who chooses the better of the two. The Gemara asks, what is the meaning of Rabbi Talmud? And he holds that it is presumed that the healthier and the better of the two emerged first, and therefore it belongs to the priest. The Mishnah further teaches that Rabbi Kiva says they set the value of the lambs between them. Rabbi Chia bar Abba, who's that? I have a short definition here. Born in Babylon, Rabbi Chia bar Abba was the third generation Amor who immigrated to Eretz Yisrael in his youth, where he was fortunate to study from the state of the generation of the Amoraim, including Rabbi Shua ben Levi. His primary teacher in Eretz Yisrael was Rabbi Yochanan, whom he cites hundreds of times in the Talmud. Rabbi Chia was extremely poor and was at some point compelled to leave Eretz Yisrael and travel to Babylon in order to earn a living. As noted here, he eventually returned to Eretz Yisrael, where he lived for many years. So the Rabbi Yochanan says, according to Rabbi Kiva, the priest takes the leaner of the two. If a new gave birth for the first time to male twins, the priest takes the lean of the two, as it is impossible to know which was actually born first. Allah follows Rabbi Yochanan's interpretation of Rabbi Kiva's ruling. Bekhorot 5:13, Yodei 3:18:1 of the two. Rabbi Kiva Abba said to Rabbi Yochanan, but didn't we learn that they assess the value of the offspring between them, which indicates that the priest and the owner divide their value? Rabbi Yochanan said to him, while you were eating dates in Babylonia, what does that mean? Kana Yasa Bevovel. Babylonia was famous for its dates, where they were a symbol of agriculture. The term used here, Kafniyata, apparently refers to the panicle, a cluster of flowers on the tree. While the flowers are still young, they are juicy and edible. Some explain Kafniyata refers to unripe grapes, and there's a picture here, if you have this Gemara, the stand shells, of a date panicle and unripe dates. Rashi explained that this was an expression of scorn. While you were yet pampering yourself and eating dates in Babylonia, as we had already explained this matter in Eretz Yisrael, others are puzzled by Rabbi Yochanan's use of the term Kavniyata, which usually refers to inferior dates and does not fit the context of Tosfot, where therefore Tosfot interprets Rabbi Yochanan's remark as follows. It would have been preferable for you to come to me and apply yourself to the study of Torah rather than eating inferior dates in Babylonia. Some suggest that Kafneyata means unripe dates, and Rabbi Yochanan intended this as a sort of admonition. Your assessment was too hasty, like unripe dates, and you should have waited and studied the latter clause of the Mishnah instead of jumping to conclusions. We know Yisrael explained it based on the latter clause of the Mishnah. As the latter clause teaches, if one of the two were born together died, Rabbi Tarfon says the priest and the owner divide the remaining lamb, and Rabbi Kiva says since there is uncertainty to whom it belongs, it remains in the possession of the owner. As a burden of proof rests upon the claimant, if it enters your mind that when Rabbi Kiva said that they assess the value between them, he meant that they divide the value between them. Then in the latter clause too, let them divide the value of the remaining offspring between them instead of leaving them with the owner. Rather, what does they assess? Mishamnin mean? Mishamnin. The root shin mem nun is used in the Bible in reference to the increasing fat or weight. Some interpret the term mishamnin here in a similar manner. Others associate this with the Messianic word shuma, meaning an estimate or appraisal. The value between them mean. It means the additional fat, shumim of the better twin will be subject to a dispute between them, as the owner says to the priest, bring a proof that the better one is the firstborn, and I take it. The Mishnah teaches that the second lamb that remains in the possession of the owner must graze until it becomes blemished, at which point he may slaughter and eat it, and he is obligated to have the gifts of the priest with either foreleg and the jaw and the more taken from it. Rabbi Yossi deems him exempt from giving these gifts. The Gemara asks, what was the reason, Rabbi Meir, whose opinion is the ruling cited in the first Mishnah? Rabbi Yochanan says the owner is obligated since the priest comes upon him from two sides, i.e. by force of two complementary claims. As the priest says to him, if the second lamb is in fact the firstborn, it is mine in its entirety, and if it is not the firstborn, at least give me the priestly blessing from it. And what is the reason Rabbi Yossi, who deems the animal exempt from giving the priestly gift from the second animal? Rabbi says, in this particular case, the sage is rendered one who did not acquire the animal like one who acquired the animal. So what does that mean? If there is uncertainty with regard to which of two animals is the firstborn, and the priest took one of them, the other is not subject to the mitzvah of gifts, as the sage instituted that the priest should be treated as though he acquired it. It acquired it previously and then returned it to the owner in its blemished state. The halacha is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yossi. See Gittin 30a. Some rule in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Meir that it is subject to the mitzvah of the gift, Rosh and the Torah. This matter is subject to a dispute among the late authorities as well. Rambam Sefer Zerayim, Hilchot Bekhorot 9:3, Shulchan Aruch Yodea 61:20, and the Shach and the text there. The early commentaries ask, Why did the sage institute an ordinance that results in a leniency for the Israelite, as he is thereby exempt from giving the gifts? The answer that according to Rabbi Yossi, in any case that the owner is exempt from giving the priestly gifts, as he cannot say to the priest, if this animal is the firstborn, I have already given you an animal in its stead. If you claim that it is not a firstborn, then it is incumbent upon you to prove it in order to receive the gift. And the latter related commentaries explain that the sages instituted this ordinance in order to ensure that the Israelite would fulfill the mitzvah of giving the firstborn to the priest. Since the priest is considered to have exchanged two animals, both have entered the priest's possession at some point, and the mitzvah was fulfilled. And that's from the Maharid Al-Ghazi, Rachid Bekurim. And therefore, even though the second lamb of the Israelite did not actually enter the priest's possession, it is considered as though it entered the priest's possession, and then he sold it to the Israelite by mistake, in exchange for the lamb he received. The owner can then claim that perhaps it is the firstborn, and he already feels the obligation of giving it to the priest. Rabbi Elazar says, everyone concedes in the case of an animal with an uncertain firstborn state is a replacement for which is not in the possession of the priest. What's the footnote? An animal whose firstborn state is uncertain is subject to the mitzvah of priestly gifts, according to the opinion of Rabbi Elazar. The reason is that whichever way the matter is considered, those parts of the animal belong to the priest. If it is the firstborn, then the entire animal is belong to the priest. If not, then the priestly gifts belong to them. And that's in the Rambam Sefer Zevayim, Hilchot Bekum 9.3, Shulchan Aruch Yoredei 61:20. That is obligated to have gifts that the priest has taken from it. In other words, in a case where the priest receives neither offspring, i.e., e.g., when a male and female are born together, all agree that the owner must give the gifts to the priest. And what else? When Rabbi Elazar says that everyone concedes, to whom was he referring? Was he referring to Rabbi Yossi? That seems obvious. After all, Rabbi Yossi deems the owner exempt from giving the gifts only there, when the replacement is in the possession of the priest, and the sages rendered one who did not acquire the animal like one who acquired the animal. But if the replacement is not in the possession of the priest, evidently Rabbi Yossi does not rule that one is exempt, but region does not apply. Why then is the statement of Rabbi Elazar necessary? The Gemara answers Rabbi Elazar's statement is in fact necessary. Necessary that the reason Rabbi Yossi deems him exempt from giving the gifts is that he holds that if you deem him obligated in the gifts, he will assume that the animal is completely non-sacred and will come to use it for shearing and labor. Consequently, even though there is no replacement in the hand of the priest, the sages rule that one is exempt from giving the gifts in order to ensure that he does not violate the prohibition against shearing the animal or using it for labor. Rabbi Elazar therefore teaches us that this is not the halacha, and Rabbi Yossi agrees that one is obligated to give the priestly gifts in such circumstances. The Gemara objects, how can you say this? But doesn't the last part of the mission in 18b teach, as Rabbi Yossi says? So that's the end of the Omid. Thank you for listening, and I wish you a very good day, and may there be peace in Israel very soon.